Local news, national news, even feel-good news. Delivering the topics that are relevant to you.
That's why I listen to Joe. He covers it all.
The Joe Kelly Show on WDBO.
Well, I'm so glad that you are here with us on this, and I've lost track of what day it is. I think it's Wednesday, because we had a Monday, and then we had Independence Day, and then we got today, which is a Wednesday, and I'm very excited about that. We had an awesome time yesterday at Lake Eola Park, in spite of the nuclear heat that we endured, and in spite of the lightning and showers and storms that we endured. It was a lot of fun. I was out there till late last night. Got to be up on the bandshell and introduced the only city dignitary that showed up was Commissioner Patty Sheehan. And yes, she's a Democrat, but she's also a delight. She's a lot of fun. And you should have seen the way she was dressed last night. I really thought I was going to be voted most patriotic. I had this really cool American flag shirt and some red, white, and blue shoes. And I thought, oh, I got this, man. Well, then Patty Sheehan shows up, and she is. She looks like I was going to say Uncle Sam, but like Aunt Sam. That doesn't work, does it? She looked like the female Uncle Sam the way she was decked out. I mean, it was really something, but it was a lot of fun. The fireworks show was great. Unlike last year, there were no mishaps, no problems this year. It was a lot of fun. And I'm glad for everybody that came. Thank you guys for coming out. It was great meeting so many people out there yesterday. But we move on. We got other things to talk about here today. And I was taken by an NBC News report about Florida and about the new law that began July 1st dealing with immigration in the state of Florida. And I want to start off this conversation by airing this NBC News report. Take a listen.
Tonight, a new law is set to upend an entire way of life for many immigrants in Florida. One of them is Jesus, a farm worker for 18 years. He left Mexico searching for work and a better life. But now, as one of Florida's estimated 775,000 undocumented immigrants, he faces an incredibly difficult decision: either leave or wait until the state forces him to. Telling me he'll work as long as he can here until it's time to grab his stuff and go back to Mexico, adding he has no idea what is going to happen. He's in limbo because Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a law as a way to crack down on employers that are hiring undocumented workers, requiring them to use an online database to verify legal status, banning local governments from issuing IDs to the undocumented, and requiring hospitals that accept Medicaid to ask patients about their immigration status. The move's creating panic.
What the law has created is an environment of fear where people believe, that they are at risk.
Studies show immigrants make up 35% of Florida's booming construction industry, but we don't know how many of those are undocumented, while an estimated 47% of the people working Florida fields are undocumented. The Florida Policy Institute estimating losing those workers could mean an economic loss of nearly $13 billion per year and a drop of 10% of the state's total workforce. Fidencio is one of the many migrant workers here in the farming community of Homestead, and he says the consequences of the law will be felt by everyone like him. He says DeSantis is going to be breaking up families, and it's up to God what happens next. It's something even Florida's business leaders are worried about. The people in charge of massive infrastructure projects like Daniel Kotze, whose company is tasked with developing the new Miami World Center, a 27-acre, $4 billion project, a worksite employing as many as 15,000 workers.
And it's not just in construction. You're going to see it in all types of service industries. I have a friend that owns a chain of restaurants. He says half of his staff is leaving.
Kotze says new immigration reform is needed to fix the problem.
At the end of the day, you wouldn't have the illegal immigration problem if you didn't have a lot of people that were facilitating this in our country.
The governor's office telling NBC News SB 1718 counteracts the effects of illegal immigration in Florida, adding any business that exploits this crisis by employing illegal aliens instead of Floridians will be held accountable. But advocates looking out for those migrants and Florida's economy say the new law will be a devastating blow to Florida's crucial industries.
A lot of these businesses in the agriculture industry are going to have to grapple with the idea of closing shop.
Not too many people are in line for those jobs. So there's going to be a big void.
Governor DeSantis, who's running for president, sees the immigration law as a blueprint for the entire country.
We've established here in Florida a blueprint for success that other states can follow.
Leaving the path ahead for Jesus and others just like him unclear as they hope to find a new home where they can build a new life.
And Guad joins me now from Miami. So, Guad, what options do these folks have on the table now that this law is going to affect in just a few hours?
Well, Lindsay, some of them can stay in the state of Florida. You know, they have been working in the state of Florida illegally. To be clear, it isn't legal to work anywhere in the U.S. for anyone that is undocumented. And the guys I spoke with, both Jesus and Fidencio, told me.
And I'm going to stop it right there because of what he just said, of what the reporter just said. So he spends 4 minutes on how this is going to be bad for the undocumented workers, but he fails to point out that their presence in the United States and employers employing them is in and of itself illegal in all 50 states. It is illegal in all 50 states for employers to employ people who don't have documents, legally allowing them into the United States, allowing them to work in the United States. The difference between Florida and the other 49 is that Florida decided to do something about it. Florida decided that they're going to crack down. They're going to make sure that employers with 25 or more employees have to use the online database E-Verify to make sure that their new hires can legally work in the United States. Every state is supposed to do that, but everybody has been ignoring it. And look, I don't begrudge, not even remotely, I don't begrudge undocumented workers. I don't look at them with contempt, with scorn. I have nothing but love for all of my brothers and sisters. And I understand that they are coming here for a variety of reasons, but many of them, if not all of them, come here looking for a better life. And it thrills me that we live in a country that still attracts so many people that want to live here, whether they come here legally or illegally. But we have an untenable situation right now when it comes to illegal immigration, with literally millions and millions of undocumented people coming across not just our southern border, but now they're streaming across our northern border as well. And they're not all coming from economically depressed areas. Some of them are fleeing war. Some of them are just here. There have been a number of terrorists, people on terrorist watch lists that have been nabbed at the border. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to push-pull. And the United States has made coming to America attractive. We have made it, forget about our lax border policies, but we have made it attractive to immigrants that if you can get across the border, you'll find a state where you can find a job and you can raise a family and you can put your kids in school and you'll be able to use the hospitals and you'll be able to use everything. We have been pulling illegal immigrants into our nation. And again, forget about how lax the border policy is for just a minute. So we have been enticing them. We have laxed our laws so much that we have made it attractive. We have become, the United States is what in legal terms they would call an attractive nuisance, because we are attracting immigrants to cross the border to come to the United States because they know when they come here they're going to get a cell phone, they're going to get free health care, they're going to get free education, they're going to be able to find housing. I mean, for Pete's sake, right now we're putting undocumented immigrants in hotels in New York City, in hotels in L.A., in hotels in Washington, D.C. I mean, we're putting them up in nicer hotels than many of us would be able to afford. So we are attracting them here. What Governor DeSantis has done is push. So the U.S. is pulling them here, and DeSantis is pushing them out of Florida because he is going to enforce the laws, something that all the other 49 states should be doing, but they are not. Now, I would imagine that the other 49, at least some of the red states, the Republican states, will similarly pass legislation like this. But people are acting shocked and surprised at, well, how? How did you guys not know that this was going to happen? Everybody's going to leave. We're not going to have any workers. That's exactly the plan. This legislation is going exactly as it was planned. This should not be a surprise to anybody. And yes, undocumented workers are going to be leaving the state in droves. They're not going to be able to find work. Employers risk losing their businesses if they are caught employing undocumented workers. So we're going to see a significant portion of Florida leave the state in search of work in other states. And that is exactly what Ron DeSantis had in mind. That is exactly what the legislation is designed to do. So don't be surprised if suddenly a major portion of construction workers, agricultural workers, back bar workers, restaurant workers, don't be surprised if a good portion of them just up and leave, because they're not going to be able to work here anymore. And again, that's how it was designed. This is exactly what is supposed to be happening. And I support it 100%. Every state should do the same. And then we would stop seeing people amassing on the border. We wouldn't even need a border fence if we stopped making the United States attractive to undocumented border crossers. That's exactly what we should be doing. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. Let's go to Connie first in Orlando. Hey, Connie, you're on the Joe Kelly Show. How are you? Do I have a Connie? Is it potted up? I don't have a Connie. All right, Connie, try back. Thank you very much. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. We're also keeping a very close eye on the weather here tonight. We have had multiple storm center activations with multiple severe weather alerts. And I will tell you that there is another line of showers that it's making its way towards Orlando right now. We're getting a bit of a break at the moment here in the city center, but they're out towards Yalaha and Zellwood and Groveland. It's always Zellwood and Groveland where the showers kind of start building up, and then they move towards Orlando. So we do have another pretty big band of showers making its way towards us right now. Let's go to Kevin and Apopka in the APK. Hello, Kevin. You're on the Joe Kelly Show. How are you?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Good.
Yeah, I was calling in about DeSantis passing this law or enforcing the law.
Yep.
About the immigration. Yeah, I'm in complete favor of it. I've been saying that for years, that if they didn't have a reason to be here, they wouldn't be coming. And I don't fault them for a second about wanting to come. And
I don't either.
Life for them and their family.
Yep.
But as far as these people crying they're going to lose their employees, they're upset because they're going to have to start paying Americans enough to live on.
Yeah,
just like you were saying the other day about the convention center not paying anything. Nobody down here pays right. Nobody.
I think I hate to say this, but I look at what's happening in France right now, and France is on fire. Paris is on fire. And while that is not a workers' revolt, I feel like the time might be right for a workers' revolt here in the United States, because American citizens are vastly underpaid. We have not had significant pay increases in the United States in decades, while CEOs and corporate leaders have seen their pay increase astronomically. I mean, and not that I'm advocating for an increase in federal minimum wage, but the federal minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. I mean, it is insane how little we're paying people. And I think that the market is broken right now with how we're paying people so low, so little. It's embarrassing.
Oh, it's disgusting. I mean, as a young adult, you could work anywhere. If you worked a full-time job, you could have what you needed. You might not have what you want, but you could have everything you need. And now you work a full-time job with overtime and you have nothing.
And then you got people working two, 3, 4 jobs just to be able to make ends meet. Kevin, thank you so much, man. It's great talking to you. I love that you're listening, and tell a friend about us, if you will. 844-580-WDBO. Use the open mic in the WDBO app. I'm Joe Kelly. You're listening to The Joe Kelly Show.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk.
Hang on, Laurel was just telling me something. What were you just telling me, Laurel, in the chat room?
So downtown Claremont had their fireworks display last night, as many people did, or the night before. And while everybody was off enjoying all the fireworks in downtown Claremont, I guess a group of kids, they don't know, they haven't caught them yet, somewhere between 14 and 19 years old, came through and spray painted a bunch of cars. And one gentleman in particular was saying he just got this brand new truck. And they came through and they spray painted a bunch of curly cues on his car. They broke his windows, put holes in his headlamps. They snapped his ABS line.
Wow.
And so they're offering money for anybody that can lead to give a tip to lead the rest of these kids that just went through and spray painted a bunch of cars.
I don't mean to be glib, but this is why we can't have nice things. I mean, it is so aggravating. I'm frustrated with humanity at the moment, I think. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. Let's go to Fruitland Park, where Mike is joining us here on WDBO. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Joe. How are you?
Awesome. Thanks.
How'd the surgery go?
I didn't have it. I'm glad you asked. I didn't have it because the day before the surgery was scheduled, I went in for a routine doctor's appointment, and long story short, they found that I had fluid in my lungs. They call it pulmonary edema, and I had almost 2 liters of fluid. So imagine like a 2-liter pop bottle, right? Like a Coke bottle. I was carrying that around in my left lung, and I had no idea. So they had to do that, and I regrettably missed the surgery. So
you're 5 pounds lighter.
Yes, I probably am. You're right about that, which is exactly what I didn't need.
So in all honesty, this thing with the illegals, I mean, they're getting pushed out. People are supposed to use the E-Verify. This is an opportunity for, I think, parents to have their kids step up and maybe go to a trade school and take some of these jobs and actually pay taxes.
It may well be, Mike. I mean, obviously, as the student loan payments are about to kick back in here in a couple of weeks, and the people are going to start paying their loans back, I think people are really reevaluating the value of a college education and where it fits into our modern society. And part of that's, our parents' faults, our grandparents' faults for insisting that you have to go to college. You'll be nothing if you don't go to college.
I am a trade school child from the 90s. We got shipped to a school for half the day and learned how to do an actual trade. And I've been in that trade now for 25 years. And I think it's time for the kids of the U.S., the legal citizens and their parents to step up and say, hey, my kid can do this. I don't care what you pay him. I started at $8 an hour. Okay. And now I'm up to mid-30s, and I'm not going to say what I do, but I mean, come on. The parents need to step up.
I obviously everybody needs to step up, and I think you're right. Great call, Mike. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's go to Connie. I think we got Connie back. Connie from Orlando. Hello, Connie. How are you?
Hey, Joe. I'm great. I'm so glad you're doing okay.
Thank you.
I would miss you so much.
Thank you so much.
First of all, I have to say, calling these people that are here illegally in any way, shape, or form immigrants is insulting to real immigrants, the ones that love this country, want to be here, paid their dues, learn how to speak English. To call these guys immigrants is insulting. So they're illegal, whether they came over on a visa and overstayed, whether they came across the border and snuck over. They're illegal, and they need to go. They just have to go.
Connie, thank you so much. I'm so sorry to cut you short there. As you can hear with the music playing, I'm out of time. We will continue with more of your calls and comments coming up straight ahead. Stay with us here on The Joe Kelly Show on WDBO.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. In-depth segments on topics that matter to Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. The Joe Kelly Show on WDBO.
I love your show every night. You're doing great, bud.
Michael is in our chat room right now. It's on the WDBO Facebook page if you want to join us in the live video feed. And he reminded me of last year, this day, July 5th last year, as I showed up at work, I found an angry and confused dog that was here at the radio station. I always find animals here at the radio station. Laurel, remember that time we rescued that bird? We rescued an osprey off of the roof.
We need to show pictures of that sometime.
Yeah, that was awesome. We live streamed it and everything. But so last year it was a dog, and it sure enough, just as you've heard news reports, it was a dog that was frightened away from a fireworks show and just took off running, and he ended up, several miles away from where his home was. Long story short, we ended up finding the owner of the dog as we talked about it on the radio. Word got out, and the rightful owners stepped up, and they came here to the radio station and picked him up, and we were happy to make that reunion. So I hope everybody still has their dogs. I hope everybody still has 10 fingers. I hope everybody still has 2 eyeballs and everything else from the fireworks that everybody got to enjoy yesterday or the day before, whenever. I'm Joe Kelly. You can join me at 844-580-WDBO. There are said to be some 775,000 illegal aliens, undocumented immigrants here in the state of Florida. And out of the 775,000, approximately 775,000 should not legally be able to work here. And under the laws that Governor DeSantis signed, under the bills that he signed into law on July 1st, it kicked in July 1st, now any employer with 25 employees or more has to use the online database E-Verify to make sure that new hires legally can work in the United States. Well, that should have been happening all along anyway. That should not be a new development. Let's go to Homer joining us in Winter Park. Hello, Homer. How are you?
How you doing, Mr. Kelly? How you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Good. I have a problem with that. I really have a problem with what the governor's doing in Florida. Is he going out there right now and pick these peas? Are y'all going to go out there and pick those oranges off those trees? Or the strawberries out the fields? See? This is the thing. The governor's not thinking. He's eating
he is thinking. He is most
but he's eating filet mignon all night, okay? Y'all are drinking out of crystal glasses. Some of these people don't even know where their next meal is coming from. They're just trying to make a living.
Yeah, you might be right about that. You're right about that.
See, and I mean, it's wrong for him to do that. See, I do it in Sons when after I got out of high school. Farming's not easy. It's not easy work. And for these people just to want to just push them out, no, give them a 6-month visa, let them work into the season, then send them back. But don't send them people back like that.
Well,
how would he feel? If he went to their country and they did him the same way?
This was supposed to be illegal all the time. There was never a point at which people who came to the United States illegally were allowed to work in jobs. That has been against the law for a very long time. This is simply a matter, really, and people are saying, well, Governor DeSantis created this law. It's been federal law for a long time that you're supposed to use the E-Verify system, and you can't employ undocumented immigrants. And, Homer, here's where you're absolutely right. We are going to have, in the days, weeks, months ahead, maybe years ahead, we're going to have some labor issues. We're going to have some labor shortages. We're going to have some fruits that go bad on the vine. We're going to have some citrus that goes bad on the trees. We're going to have some houses that aren't going to get built as fast. We're going to have some roads that aren't going to get built as fast. We're going to have some skyscrapers that aren't going to get built as fast. There's no doubt about that. But eventually, the state will rectify this. This will be a self-healing solution as employers. Look, these businesses aren't going to just let the money go away. They're not going to just go out of business because they can no longer employ undocumented immigrants. They're going to find ways around it, and including innovating and coming up with new technology, new inventions. We don't need humans to pick strawberries. We don't need humans to pick oranges. If these are jobs that Americans don't want, as we are always told, and if Americans won't line up for those jobs, then the businesses will find other ways to get this stuff done. Whether they use AI or robotics, they will find another way to get it all done.
The Joe Kelly Show on WDBO.
Well, we got more showers headed this way right now, so we're getting a nice little break from the rain right here in the city center area, but out towards Zellwood, some showers are making its way towards us. That'll, of course, complicate the drive a little bit more as PC Paul Cross joins us with our afternoon drive home.
Yeah, Joe, it has stayed pretty busy now. Ever since the rain hit, it got crowded, and it stayed that way. We have a few crashes, too. I-4 westbound, that ramp onto the 408 eastbound, you got a crash on that ramp. It's got traffic backed up to about par. I-4 eastbound also very slow from Michigan through downtown. We got a crash on the 417 northbound at Landstar Boulevard. First responders still have that left lane shut down. Traffic now is backed up all the way to John Young Parkway. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
844-580-WDBO, or use the open mic in the WDBO app if you ever miss a minute of the Joe Kelly Show. Check out the Joe Kelly Show podcast wherever you get your podcast. You'll find it in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, at the WDBO app, and more. Let's go to Mike, who's joining us in Deltona at 844-580-WDBO. Mike, you're on the Joe Kelly Show.
Hey, Joe. First of all, Florida native, 55 years, born and raised. I'm one of the long-lasting ones.
I was going to say, you're the guy. You're the original Florida man.
Right. I must agree with Mike in Fruitland Park. Now, one problem, I'm so sorry. I've got teenagers as well. They are too lazy to get off their butts. But I also was raised in Plant City, Florida, where the strawberry picking, the hay baling, and all that crap was done by us youths. That was our jobs. We also picked oranges when I lived in Altamont Springs, when my backyard went all the way to I-4, and it was nothing but orange groves.
I'm curious,
that
Mike.
was our job.
I'm so sorry. When you say youth or kids, how old were you when you were doing these jobs?
I started at 9 years old.
Now,
9 years old.
Do you see a problem with farmers employing 9-year-olds to pick fruit?
It all depends on what the level of the job is, what the hazards are with the job. And, I was throwing bales of hay at 11 years old. No problem.
Wow.
Gotta love it. But that it is tough work. But that's where our society has been ruined, because all of our kids now think this is beneath me. This is way below my standard, because of society's pressures have made us, this is beneath me.
To that, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Mike, on that one. You're so right. And even in my industry, in radio, used to be when you would get literally my very first job in radio, I worked for 8 months without getting paid at all. I was 15 years old. I worked 8 months without getting paid, and I had to clean the toilets during my shift. So, and I didn't get paid, and I was thrilled to do it. I was 15 years old. But now in radio, if we get somebody, they instantly want to be a star, and I knew that it was going to be a long time before I would ever even approach any kind of a star status, and I'm still hoping to get there someday. But everybody wants to be a star from day one, and I think as they watch these TikTok influencers and other social media influencers, you ask kids these days in high school what they want to be when they grow up, the number one answer is a social media influencer. And that sounds, some people are able to do it and make a lot of money doing it. There's no doubt about it. But that is not something that everybody is going to be able to do.
Social media has killed our society.
I think a lot has. I think a lot. We should all pray for America. Mike, thank you so much, man. It's great hearing from you. Let's go to Deltona. Where is it? Day? Day. Hi, Day. How are you?
Doing well. I have a friend of mine it's actually one of my old neighbors. What he did for work was he was the person who set up the labor for a lot of the farms from New Jersey all the way to South Florida for everything. And he said that a good 70, if not 80% or more of the workers that do come here legitimately. They apply for the work visas, they get the work visas, they come here, they work. When they're done, they go home and bring the money back with them to their countries.
And we're okay with that, right?
100%, yeah. If you're coming here legally to do a job and you're doing it right and you're applying for the work visa, But he says that it's not, because there are some that slip through the cracks. That there are obviously people there who are doing it, but the majority of them all do it legally who are coming here to work on our farms.
That's interesting, but I don't believe that. I mean, wouldn't you agree that we've got more illegal immigrants coming here than legal right now?
Yes, coming into the country, but not for those jobs and not for those reasons. They might be getting some of them.
Yeah.
But yes, there's 100% there's more illegal immigrants coming into the country. But the ones that, because again, that's been a law in Florida for a while.
Sure.
And they're regulated and watched and checked. So if they have to present that the people who are coming and working when the government comes to them to check them, says that they all have their work visas to be able to work on the farms. And if they don't, they get shut down.
Yeah, as they should. Absolutely. Dave, thank you so much. It's great to hear from you. Chris is in Deltona. You're on the Joe Kelly Show. Hi, Chris.
Deltona's lighting it up tonight.
Oh, yeah. We got a lot of calls from Deltona, a lot of listeners. Yep.
Yeah, so I have a few points. First of all, I agree with Ron DeSantis for finally, putting this law into act. These undocumented immigrants, are they being paid under the table? Are they contributing to taxes? I don't know. That's where I'm ignorant at, but
well, and certainly they pay some taxes. They pay sales taxes when they buy things, just like you and I would. If they own a home, they could pay property taxes. But if they're paid under the table, then they're likely not getting income taxes or paying income taxes. If they're paid over the table, if they're paid legitimately, then they are paying an income tax there. Chris, thank you so much. You can join us next at 844-580-WDBO or hit me up in the open mic in the WDBO app.
The Joe Kelly Show on WDBO. Now, the three big things you need to know.
3. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour is set to be the highest-grossing tour of all time, raking in a record-setting $1 billion in ticket sales. It's expected to eclipse Elton John's Farewell Tour in terms of gross revenue for tickets, merch, and sponsorships. 2. Stocks are down as the bell rings on Wall Street. This comes after the release of minutes from the Federal Reserve's meeting earlier this month. Investors believe the central bank will move forward with further rate hikes later this year. 1. A brain injury previously found only in male athletes has been found in a female athlete for the first time. Researchers and doctors discovered that Australian rules football player Heather Anderson had early-stage CTE caused by head trauma. Anderson died by suicide last year.
The Joe Kelly Show on WDBO. News, weather, traffic, all the things you want on your drive home. Plus, Joe Kelly being, Joe Kelly. Now, the Joe Kelly Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
All right, some people are like, well, what does it mean when Joe Kelly is being Joe Kelly? Well, let me give you an example. I had to take my shoes off here at work today because my right big toe hurts. Now, the reason why my right big toe hurts is because the day before, I feel like I stubbed my toe. But the day before yesterday, I had to trim my toenails, and I think I trimmed them too close. And it really hurts. My toe hurts. I've cut it too close, and now I've got to wait for it to grow back out. I hope I've not grossed anybody out by describing. Well, I didn't describe my feet, but I've talked about my feet. So there you go. And I want to circle back a little bit here to talk about one of the earlier callers. And forgive me, I don't remember which caller it was. But the gentleman had said that he was working out in fields when he was 9 years old. He was throwing bales of hay when he was 11 years old. I don't think the solution to running undocumented workers out of the state is child labor. I don't think, and we have seen cases. There have been documented cases in slaughterhouses and elsewhere in the Midwest where children, 10, 11, 12-year-old children, have been put to work. And we do have child labor laws in the United States. Heaven knows if we enforce those. We don't enforce the other laws. But I just don't think it's a good idea to unless, with the exception being, if it's a family farm. If you are put to work on a family farm, if dad says, hey, you better get out there and milk those cows right now, then I think that's perfectly acceptable. Those are just chores. That's not a job. But if it's an actual job and you're getting paid to do so, I'm not too keen on 9-year-olds going out and throwing bales of hay and picking strawberries and stuff like that. I think that's just a bad idea pretty much all around. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. Coming up in a moment, Dylan Mulvaney's wish could soon be coming true. Oh, boy. And Dylan Mulvaney, as you might recall, is that TikTok trends star that caused the whole Bud Light problem. Well, Bud Light caused the whole Bud Light problem. I don't want to blame Dylan Mulvaney for that. But Dylan Mulvaney's wish could be coming true. Wait till you hear what wish I'm talking about. I'll have that for you coming up next here on The Joe Kelly Show.
The Joe Kelly Show on WDBO. Now, WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Triple Team Traffic.
Still dealing with a wreck on John Young Parkway northbound at Harwood Street with the left lane shut down. I-4 westbound, very heavy still through Lake Mary and then Parr onto the 408 eastbound. I-4 eastbound as you make your way through downtown, very slow and go from Michigan through downtown. Still of the crash, 417 northbound at Landstar Boulevard. ProTech Air Conditioning and Plumbing Service. For honesty, integrity, and 100% customer satisfaction, call ProTech 407-291-1644 or visit ProTechAC.com. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Connected to our community. Talk local issues and events with Joe Kelly. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let Joe know what interests you. The Joe Kelly Show on WDBO.
All right. Hey, if you're just joining us here on WDBO, let me get you caught up as to what we're talking about. We have been talking about the new laws here in Florida that make it much harder for undocumented workers to stay here and have jobs in the state of Florida. Somebody had called in earlier and said that we need to start putting our kids to work. I'm not a fan of child labor per se. I certainly understand, putting your kids to work if it's your farm, if it's your business. But just sending a 9-year-old out to go to work each day to me is not the solution. And then let me just play this open mic that kind of contributes to that conversation.
Joe, I'm not sure that he means that we should bring back child labor, but only inferring that young people need jobs as well, and this is a job that most young people would do. Move barrels of fruit, pick stuff, work in the fields, basic labor jobs, get a feel for the workforce, that kind of thing. Young guys need that. I don't mind 15-year-old workers.
Yeah, funny you say 15. So I've only had 3 jobs in my entire life. I've only worked in 3 careers in my entire life. As a teenager, I had a brief job as a stock boy at a warehouse grocery store called Lion King. I had a job as a summer camp counselor with the Boy Scouts, and I had a job as a stevedore. Now, if you don't know what a stevedore is, it sounds prestigious, doesn't it? It's like, oh, well, I'm a stevedore. It sounds really impressive if I just stop right there and don't tell you what a stevedore is. A stevedore is a fancy name for somebody who loads and unloads ships. And because of my father worked for Texaco when I was a lad. And so I am a Nepo baby because my father got me this job. My brother and I both. I was 15. My brother was 16. And as a Nepo baby, I got a job as a stevedore where we had to load oil tankers, these massive Texaco oil tankers. We loaded them. And what that would involve is you would offload trucks and load everything into a giant cargo net. Think of like what they hauled King Kong in. And then once we load everything into the cargo net, we pull the netting up and we put a hook on it and hook it to the crane, and then they crane it up into the ship. The other job that we did, and this is really not under the definition of a stevedore, but cargo ships, oil tankers. Oil tankers have massive individual tanks inside their ships, depending on how big the ship is. But an oil tanker can have 16, 18, 20, 22. It's got to be an even number. It's got to be balanced. But they've got these massive tanks, each of which holds crude oil. Sometimes it'll hold, a refined product or something like that. But most of what I worked on was oil tankers that hauled crude oil from other nations that came to the United States to be refined in Beaumont, Texas, which is where Beaumont, Port Arthur is where a lot of oil refineries are. In fact, used to be, I don't know if it still is, but used to be the world's largest oil refinery was in Port Arthur, Texas, and that was where I grew up. Is it any wonder I'm cancer-ridden? I just got cancer everywhere because of growing up in that toxic environment. But what we had to do was crawl into those oil cargo holds, into the giant tanks, once they offloaded the ship, because, as you know, cream rises to the top. Well, lighter oil rises to the top, and the heavy oil sinks to the bottom. And the heavy oil is a sludge. It's a thick, black, gooey sludge. And this, talk about hazardous job. I don't think my dad understood what job he was getting my brother and me, because this was a very, very dangerous job that we had. So we had to climb into these tanks that I'm bad at estimating how, maybe 40, 50 feet deep, 60 feet deep. And we would have to climb ladders all the way down to the bottom in this darkness, in this incredible heat with toxic fumes. We were breathing these fumes with no kind of PPE. In fact, we didn't have any PPE at all, not even helmets, nothing. And because it was a combustionable situation, because a spark or a flame could have easily ignited the fumes inside that tanker, we were not allowed to wear any kind of metal. We couldn't wear pants that had buttons. You couldn't wear a belt buckle. You couldn't wear necklaces. You couldn't wear rings. You could not have anything metal on you. And so we had like Velcro clothing and stuff like that had no metal on it. And then they literally gave us children's beach toys, like a little children's beach bucket and a little children's beach shovel. And they would tell us to go down to the bottom of the tank and scrape up the sludge with the beach shovel, dump it into the beach bucket until it was full, and then we would hoist it back up to the top of the ship. You have no idea how grueling of a job that was. That was, and I was 15 years old when I did it. I don't remember the exact salary I made doing it, the exact wage, but I want to say at the time, I want to say it was like $25 an hour, which for a 15-year-old kid in 1980 something, I'm not trying to cover up my age. I'm 55. I just can't think of what year that would have been. But in the early 1980s, $25 an hour was bank. I was making a lot of money, and it was awesome. But the guys on the crew, there was these two sweet little innocent kids, my brother and me, and then a crew of some of the scariest, most dangerous men you have ever seen that we worked with. And again, I have to question I don't think my dad realized what he was getting us into. And one of the guys that we worked with, Laurel, had this massive scar on his right arm. I mean, it was ugly. It was a twisted and mangled scar on his arm. And I finally got the nerve one day to ask about it. Of course, I didn't quite have the nerve as a 15-year-old to ask the guy with a mangled arm, so I asked somebody else on the crew. I'm like, how did that guy get his arm jacked up so bad? And he said, oh, well, a few years ago, he was getting pulled over by the police. And as he exited the vehicle with his shotgun, the shotgun accidentally went off and damn near blew off his arm. And it took him a long time to recover. And so that was the guy that was on my work crew, okay? It's like, Dad. If Mom would have found out, she would have been very, very upset. I have no doubt about that. But that's what I did when I was a 15-year-old kid and out there making money. And I enjoyed it. That was fun. All right, 844-580-WDBO. Let's go to Mike in Orlando. You're on WDBO. Hi, Mike.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
We're doing great, thank you.
As a 35-year construction worker here in the Orlando area, I've worked with a lot of the major construction companies doing highways and stuff. I think that most of the younger kids don't want to do it due to the inconvenience as a parent with the hours that I had to work. When you apply for a construction company, you're basically saying you can work 7 days a week, days or nights. And at someone who's 65 now, I can't tell you how many regrets I've had due to the long hours and raising my daughter and not spending time with her just due to doing the job, to get the money and do all of that. And, my daughter said to me, that's nothing that I would want to do, or a lot of the kids don't want to do that because they've seen the heartache that their parents went through.
Mike, can I tell you, I feel for you. I feel what you're saying to me because I have that same regret. I have always been so wrapped up in my work, and it's a job that I love. I've been so wrapped up in my work that I have often been negligent with my parenting duties, and that is something that I wish I could go back in time and change that, but obviously we can't.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yep.
But on the immigration thing, I've seen so many illegals come to work construction and then them tell the employer, oh, yeah, I filled out my paperwork. It's just not in yet. It'll be a couple weeks before I get it. So then they work, 3, 4, 5 weeks. They get called back to the office. We didn't get your paperwork yet. And then sure enough, like a month and a half later, they end up coming back to them and saying, you're out of here because we never received your paperwork. And they just look at me and they just say, well, time to get another job. That's basically how they get around that system by saying, oh, yeah, I filed all my paperwork. I might need the day off to go to Orlando. And, they play the game. But this progress has been on the books forever, to save proof. And yet they still find a loophole to get around it. But, yeah, I enjoyed the show. I enjoyed your picture of you sitting inside the van all soaking wet in the middle.
Yesterday was quite a day.
Funny how they put the skinny guy in the middle.
Right? I know.
but anyways, you did a great job. I was fortunate enough to catch you practicing counting down from 10. Give me a break. But I did enjoy the show last night, and I am a dedicated follower of the show. And you and I both have a friend that works in the construction industry. I call him Tony. You call him something else. But we've been friends for over 25 years. But at 65, I can't get a job in construction because I'm overqualified, they say. God forbid they say you're too old, but it's like you're overqualified.
That's interesting.
But, that's – and the problem, like my other brother told me, is when you work construction, you're working yourself out of a job. Because when the job is done, they're headed to West Palm Beach, they're headed to Lauderdale, so it's a
transient job.
Yeah, it's nothing that's permanent. Look at everybody that worked on I-4. They're all done. Now where did they go, you know?
It's a good, very good question. Mike, I'm so glad you called. Thank you so much for listening and being a part of the Joe Kelly Show.
Always. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
You too, buddy. And, yeah, Tony's a great guy. I love Tony. I call him Arya. He is Iranian. And a lot of times when immigrants do come to the United States, they will try to Americanize their names. And I hate that. I hate that people feel that they need to Americanize their names. And I like people to embrace the names. I'll give you an example. There is a woman that runs a Chinese restaurant, and her English is terrible. And I mean this with love. She's such a hard worker. I have seen her work. I used to be a frequent customer there. I'm not now, only because I don't live near it anymore. But her name was Carol. And I thought, man, there is no way your name is Carol. There's just, maybe I'm being ignorant, but there's no way your name is Carol. And I don't want to, I'd rather learn to pronounce someone's difficult to pronounce name for me than to call them by an Americanized name, because we Americans struggle with calling people by their real names if it's not easy to pronounce. My name is Joe Kelly. That's easy to pronounce. Technically, it's Joseph, if we want to make it slightly harder. Joseph Kelly. 6:20, the time now. We'll continue. In fact, I got to get to this point that Dylan Mulvaney's wish could soon be coming true, and this could be very troublesome. I'll have that for you next.
The Joe Kelly Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelly Show on WDBO. Insightful.
You tell the truth from your point of view.
Entertaining.
Man, that guy is a lot taller than he sounds on the radio.
And engaging.
When we hear you on the radio, it's a good thing.
The Joe Kelly Show on WDBO.
Well, Dylan Mulvaney's wish could soon be coming true. You guys know Dylan Mulvaney is the trans activist, a TikTok trans influencer that had the dust up with Bud Light in early April. Well, Dylan Mulvaney once said that misgendering people should be illegal. Misgendering people is when you call them by the wrong gender. And now a new bill passed in Michigan State House last month, and now the state Senate is addressing this, could do just that. It would be a felony for people to intimidate or harass somebody by deliberately misgendering them and using pronouns that are not the ones chosen by the person. I got to tell you, this is something that causes me some internal conflict, because I want to be respectful to everybody. I want to respect everybody to the best of my ability. And I understand that people want to be called what they want to be called. And I'll give you an example with my name, Joseph. So with a name like Joseph James, there are a variety of names you could call me, right? Joe, Joey, JJ, James, Jimmy, Jim. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to call my name, and some of them I may respond to and I may not. But of all the names that you could call me, there is one name that I absolutely hate being called. One of my names that I hate being called. I hate when people call me, and I hate to say this because if I do, my antagonists will start calling me this from now on. But I do not like to be called Joey. It irritates me when someone calls me Joey. And I feel like Joey is more of a child's name than a grown-up's name. But I don't like to be called Joey. And we used to have a colleague, a teammate here at the radio station, that every time he saw me, he called me Joey. And I really struggled to like that guy. It was a real struggle for me just because of that. So I understand if someone wants to change their name. I understand that if I get it. I'm not without empathy in people wanting to be called by whatever they want to be called as. But I'm really conflicted about this when it comes to gender pronouns and misgendering people, because I feel like there's an element of we are now participating in someone else's mental health crisis. We are empowering them by calling them the genders that they want to be called. This Philadelphia shooter from Monday night that killed 5 people and wounded 2 small children goes by the pronouns they, them. And the cops, in describing the suspect, have referred to the suspect as they, them. And I can't speak for everybody's situation, obviously, but I think a lot of people have felt social pressures to re-identify as something that they're not. It's a social contagion when you see a 4,000% increase in people who identify as non-binary in a single year. A 4,000% increase. Either something's in the water that is causing us to all suddenly feel like we're the wrong gender, or there's some sort of social contagion that is running rampant amongst our youth particularly, right now, and it's trendy. It's popular. You get attention if you claim to be binary, if you claim to be trans, if you're a trans man or a trans woman. And I feel like for those of us who aren't trans, I feel like we're participating in their fantasy. We're participating in their mental health crisis. So there's two different issues here. One is the legality of it, and one is what's right to do. Michigan trying to make this a felony is a joke, and it's laughable, and it's useless. And I think more harm can be caused than good by it. But that is a different argument as to whether or not we should attempt to honor people's preferred pronouns. I'm Joe Kelly. You can join the discussion at 844-580-WDBO.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Breaking news to lively debates, covering the issues that matter to you.
I make it a point to listen to Joe Kelly when I need to fully understand what's happening in the news.
Now, the Joe Kelly Show on Orlando's news and talk, WDBO.
Joey, I love you, man. I wish you were still on in the mornings, Joey. Have a good night, Joey. Love you, buddy. Bye-bye.
I suppose I deserve that. And certainly shouldn't be surprised about that. Yeah, it's the Joe Kelly Show. You can join us at 844-580-WDBO or use the open mic in the WDBO app. We are talking about pronouns. We're talking about Dylan Mulvaney, in particular in Michigan, where they now say it's going to be a felony for people to intimidate or harass somebody by deliberately misgendering them or using pronouns that are not the ones chosen by the person. I like to be courteous to other people, and if other people want to be called he or she or whatever, there's a point at which I'm willing to comply. And maybe that's the him, her, he, she, that stuff. But when you get into they, thems, and all these other just ludicrous terms that no one has ever heard of, I just think that's a bridge too far.
Hi, Joe. This is Mike from Winter Garden.
Mike!
My first job was delivering newspapers on my bicycle in North Miami Beach. I was 8 years old. My next jobs were when I was 11, 12, and 14, loading watermelons west of Gainesville, Florida.
Oh, my gosh. Breaking news. Laurel, that guy just made me realize that I've had 4 non-radio jobs. I too, was a paper carrier when I was a kid. When I was in middle school, back then they called it junior high. When I was in middle school, I used to throw the Port Arthur News. That was my first media job. I was throwing the Port Arthur News. It cost $4.25 a month, and I had to go door to door to collect the money. And I was really good at throwing. I was really bad at collecting the money. I was not a very good paper boy. I loved it, but I would ride my bicycle. I don't remember what bike I had, and this giant sack of newspapers that I would have to, roll up, put a rubber band on, and then throw them on the driveway. I don't remember what I got paid to do that, but man, those were hot, long summers in Southeast Texas and Port Arthur, Texas, breathing the petrochemical air. I've had 4 jobs, evidently, that weren't radio, paper carrier being one of them.
Hey, Joe, I love the story about your crude oil job. It was almost as good as your near-death experience with the scuba diving. Hey, I've been working I'm your same age, 55 years old, and I've been working almost every day since I was 12 years old, out of necessity, and I wanted to do it. If I wanted something in life, like a new fishing pole, new surfboard or skateboard, I had to work for it. My parents were not going to give it to me. And I think that's what's missing today. The kids need to work for it instead of being given to them.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth there. Zach is in Oviedo, joining us now at 844-580-WDBO. Hi, Zach.
Hey, I was going to go to Lake Eola, but then I looked at the weather.
Yeah.
You guys got, yeah, man. I want to meet you. Now, hey, whether they call you Joey or not, just don't let them call you late for supper. Now, another thing is Araya or Aryan in World War II, Google where the name Iran came from, and it took over Persia. Now, hey, Joe, I have a beard. I'm past Grizzly Adams. I'm heading towards ZZ Top, and when I first started growing it, my fiance Whitney, she was like, "Hey, I love it in blue, 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 blue." I get out of the shower today. I'm like, "Should I shave it off?" She was like, "Well," and so now I want you guys to put a vote in whether I should shave my ZZ Top beard off or not.
All right, Laurel.
And if they say yes,
what do you think, Laurel? Should he shave his beard, Laurel? You're the deciding vote here.
No, don't do it.
Don't do it.
I say
Okay,
no.
there you go. That's the official word. Don't. Do not even think about shaving your beard. Okay. 844-580-WDBO or use the open mic in the WDBO app.
So what's going to actually have to happen is business who have been employing illegal people will have to come clean. They'll have to actually raise the rate that they're paying their people so that, guess what? It actually becomes profitable to work for them instead of using slave labor, which is basically all they think of the illegals as.
By the way, did you have hot dogs yesterday for 4th of July, Laurel?
Yeah, I did, actually.
For real?
Yeah, I did.
And what did you put on it?
Hot mustard and ketchup.
Oh, you have made a terrible, terrible mistake.
What did I do?
You put ketchup on a hot dog.
Who says it's illegal?
The National Hot Dog and Sausage Council. Did you know that there's a National Hot Dog and Sausage Council? Why wouldn't there be?
Why wouldn't there be?
They claim that if you're an adult, Laurel, are you an adult?
I think so, sometimes, most days.
If you're an adult, they say ketchup is not an acceptable addition to your Franks.
What?
Eric Mithenthal, the president of NHDSC. What a job. What do you suppose he makes? Well, I want to know what kind of money he earns. He says the sweetness is just not an ideal match for a hot dog. As New Yorkers know, mustard, onions, and sauerkraut are the preferable toppings. Yet Mark Rosen of Sabrett, you know what Sabrett is, right? Sabrett are the hot dogs that you can buy at the grocery store, but they're most often sold at like carts at festivals and fairs and stuff.
Okay.
Sabrett, it's a brand of hot dogs. They're delicious. Mark Rosen of Sabrett defended ketchup, saying, whatever floats your boat. Well, yeah, whatever floats your boat. A May 2021 survey found that 61% of Americans enjoy their hot dogs with a few squirts of ketchup. I didn't think ketchup on a hot dog was controversial. Obviously, you put mustard on a hot dog. Relish goes on a hot dog. Can I admit to something that I don't think a lot of people do? I put mayonnaise on my hot dog.
That's weird.
Is that weird?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like mayonnaise, but
Yeah. So I put mayonnaise on my hot dog. Terrible story. Hang on, what time is it? Terrible story out of Texas. A poor woman was it's California. Brutally attacked by 100,000 attackers. I will describe the attackers coming up next here on The Joe Kelly Show.
The Joe Kelly Show on WDBO.
fans of Disney have a chance to purchase some rare collectibles. A collector is putting 1,500 Disney items up for auction in Burbank from July 17th through the 19th. Among the items are posters, costumes, and life-size vehicles from rides like Dumbo and Peter Pan. Stocks are down as the bell rings on Wall Street. This comes after the release of minutes from the Federal Reserve's meeting earlier this month. Investors believe the central bank will move forward with further rate hikes earlier or later this year. One. A brain injury previously found only in male athletes has been found in a female athlete for the first time. Researchers and doctors discovered that Australian rules football player Heather Anderson had early-stage CTE caused by head trauma. Anderson died by suicide last year.
The Joe Kelly Show on WDBO. Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. Join the conversation now by using the open mic in the WDBO app. Now, the Joe Kelly Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
So this is an insane story, and man, my heart breaks for this woman. A 74-year-old California woman is recovering after she was attacked by as many as 100,000 bees that were living in the walls of her home. Oh my gosh. She was standing outside her house June 28th when a swarm of bees surrounded her and covered her face and hands. A neighbor tried spraying her with a water hose, but the bees would not give up. They wouldn't let go. Finally, the fire department showed up and doused her with foam, which got the bees to end their attack. She was rushed to a nearby hospital. Doctors removed more than 700 stingers from her. Oh, wow. The biggest shock, though, came when she went home. That's when she discovered that the bees had come from the same place that she had, her house. They've been living in her walls. And if you want to find out more about this story, Laurel, we've got it posted right now on the at WDBO.com.
We sure do.
Or in the WDBO app. Just look for the story in the WDBO app. Is there a picture of the woman?
No, but I'll try to find one.
Okay. I'd just be curious to see this. You know what? Actually, I don't want to see it.
Yeah, it might be. Ow. Oof.
Yeah, I don't think we want to see that. That sounds like it could be absolutely terrible. Ben & Jerry's yesterday, of all days, Ben & Jerry's sent out a tweet yesterday calling on the United States to return, quote, stolen indigenous land to Native Americans. Their tweet reads, the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land this 4th of July. Let's commit to returning it. And they had a similar but longer message on their website. The company argued that July 4th festivities and celebrations can distract from the essential truth about this nation's birth. Ben & Jerry's proposed starting with Mount Rushmore, writing, what is the meaning of Independence Day for those whose land this country stole, those who were murdered and forced with brutal violence onto reservations, those who were pushed from their holy places and denied their freedom. The faces on Mount Rushmore, it reads, are the faces of men who actively worked to destroy indigenous cultures and the ways of life, to deny indigenous people their basic rights. Well, here's an interesting side note to this story, is that the main headquarters for Ben & Jerry's, and I believe it's in Vermont, sits on Indian land. It sits on what was Indian land. So the hypocrites, one would think, would start with themselves and return their land to the indigenous people, but they're not doing so. But they're calling on, which is just ludicrous. It is ludicrous. You know, even if we were to say, "Gosh, that was kind of lousy," you know, we really did the Indians wrong. We might have mistreated them on numerous occasions. It doesn't mean we're going to turn over the United States, you know, back to the way it was in the 1700s, 1800s. That's just ludicrous for Ben & Jerry's to even suggest that. Thank you so much for being a part of the Joe Kelly Show. We sure do appreciate it. Thanks for everybody in our chat room. It's always nice to talk to you guys in the chat on our WDBO Facebook page. Thanks for your phone calls tonight. Coming up next, it's the third hour of the Sean Hannity Show. Stick around here on WDBO.